Hey, chapter 4. I'm reading on my Nook, so I don't have an actual book to show you pictures. Okay, chapter 4. The two wives started on me that morning as soon as I had eaten a bowl of mush and a piece of smoked deer meat. They stood me up beside the fire, stripped off all my clothes, and tossed them away. Blue Sky said, Shoshone men have beautiful horses which they wash and comb and trick out with feathers, but their women look like the scarecrows we put up in our cornfields. They starve their women also, second wife said. Look at this one. Two of her would scarcely cast one shadow. None at all, Blue Sky said. Likely the sun shines clean through her and comes out the other side and casts not the thinnest shadow at all. Both of the wives were fat. Their legs were bigger than my whole body. The Minatories had a lot of food because they planted big fields of corn and squash and beans, and they had a big storehouse filled with smoked deer and buffalo meat and dried ears of corn, which I had never seen before. The corn tasted good if it was mixed with water and cooked a long time. The wives called in 4 women from a different lodge who were famed in the village as cutters and stitchers. Working as fast as they could, they cut a tunic for me from a beautiful white antelope skin and made a pair of trousers to match it. They had me stand on a piece of soft deer hide, and they cut patterns around my feet with a sharp steel knife. In no time at all, I had a new pair of moccasins with yellow beads stitched on them and little drags to flop around and make a whispering sound. The next morning, the 2 wives rubbed me all over with bear grease, even the bottoms of my feet. Then they washed the grease off and covered me with a scented oil that soon disappeared into my skin, leaving the scent of a prairie rose. They painted a row of purple dots on my cheekbones and daubed vermilion inside both of my ears. Then they took me outside in the bright sun and gazed at me. Blue Sky said, "Who would ever believe that what we see here is a Shoshone?" "No one," second wife said. "This must be a spirit child who appears before us." Blue Sky shook her head. "No, it is not a spirit child we see. This is a dream child. A child we have dreamed of out of, second wife found the word, out of little." They talked together as if I understood nothing of what they said, as if I were not even there. So I broke in upon them politely, although I was feeling a little upset. "I am what I was before you dressed me up like a doll. I was an Agadika Shoshone, and I am an Agadika Shoshone now, at this moment and forever." Blue Sky said, "Red Hawk should be pleased with what he finds here." "Red Hawk can be hard to please sometimes. It is more than 20 summers and winters since he was born, and he is still without a single wife. It's a scandal. We've never had a hand in things before. 7 of them he has passed by. 1, a Sioux princess. But now we shall snare him with our little Shoshone." Yes, Black Moccasin took to her when she had a lump on her face and smelled to the clouds. He'll see that his son does likewise. "Yes, but what reward do we receive for all of our troubles?" "I will give this some thought." So these are the 2 women talking back and forth, just in case you didn't know that. "Think now. We have little time to waste. Red Hawk appears today. Rewards unasked for fade like morning mist." I broke in upon them again, raising my voice. "Who is this man who has had 20 summers and 20 winters and not even one wife? How does he look, this one who refuses a Sioux princess? To me, he sounds spoiled." All of this I spoke in Shoshone, except the part, "To me, he sounds spoiled," which I said in good Minatory with a gesture that means ugly. To me, he sounds ugly. Blue Sky gave me a sharp look. It is not for you to have thoughts about Red Hawk. You are fortunate if he even looks at you twice, even though we have fixed you up. You are fortunate to be taken into Black Moccasin's lodge, that you are not a slave, and 2 times fortunate that you are not dead. I swallowed my anger, but it was there simmering in my stomach. It simmered all day while I sat in the lodge waiting for Red Hawk to appear. The 2 wives would not let me move, fearing that I would spot my beautiful tunic made of the whitest antelope skin, and my moccasins that had beads on them and drags that whispered. Fearing that I would sweat and the paint on my face would run, they would not let me eat, lest I spill something on myself. So poor Sacagawea just had to sit there, not moving, not eating, not doing anything. The lodge was filled with children who gathered around and stared at me. I sat prettily on 2 buffalo robes, looking exactly like a princess. I had even begun to feel like a princess. But at the end of the day, just as I looked up and just saw a star peering through the smoke hole, I heard the thud of hooves, many of them. Blue Sky put me on my feet, straightened my tunic, and daubed some more paint on my face and in my ears. Second wife brought a pair of moccasins, feathers, and shells, and handed me a needle. So, she said, it is necessary that Red Hawk sees that you're useful as well as a decoration. Red Hawk burst through the door, Black Moccasin's arm around him, and gave out a mighty screech. Ay-ya-ya-ya-ya! The children and the wives ran to greet him. Outside, people clamored at the door. Sitting by the fire, I sewed and stitched on the moccasin. He was tall and thin and very light-colored like his father, like all the Minnetonka warriors. His hair was black as a blackbird's wing. It hung to his shoulders and swept out like wings as he staggered to the fire. There was a hush until he spoke. Then, while he told about how he had brought home enough buffalo meat for 2 long winters, and how he and his men had captured 10 Pawnee women and children, the wives kept up a chorus of how brave he was. They clapped their hands and sang something that sounded foolish. He never looked at me once, but when he had finished his speech and marched outside to repeat it to the crowd, he darted a glance in my direction. 1 glance, and that was all. So a glance is a really quick look at something. So if I glance over here, I'll just glance over real quick. That's a glance. It was toward nightfall, and a pine tree was burning. Pine, which has a lot of resin, makes bitter smoke. Some of the smoke went out through the roof hole, but most of it stayed in the long house. Running Deer stood close to me, but I could barely see her face. Black Moccasin was by the fire, his favorite place. His wives were busy cooking supper, and the children were playing outside. Running Deer spoke softly, though no one was listening. I have found a way, she said. A way to what? I asked. To flee, to go home. I had seen her in the village, but this was the first time we had been able to talk together. I was surprised that she had come to see me. Home? I asked. Many of our people are dead. Can you find those who live? I will go and look, she said. But why? You have not been harmed by Black Moccasin and his people. You have plenty of food to eat. Winter is near. You will die on the trail. You like it here, she said. You are comfortable here. You live in the chieftain's longhouse. You eat good food. You never think of the old days. But I do. They are never out of my mind. It is useless to think of them. They're gone. I will talk to Black Moccasin, and perhaps he will take you into his lodge. I know he will. I do not wish to live in Black Moccasin's lodge. But how can you ever find your way home? The people are hunting buffalo now. They will be near the place where we were captured. Remember how I left signs along the trail? I will find the signs. Her mind was fixed. She was a true Shoshone. I will not go, I said, but I will help you. What do you want of me? And then she said, you can save food, pemmican and smoked deer meat, enough for 10 sleeps. You will need more than 10. And a horse, one of Black Moccasin's horses. So I saved food for her, a little each day so as not to make the wives suspicious. The horse was more difficult. Black Moccasin's horses were kept in the lodge at night. At last, she decided to take one in the daytime. At dawn, when the herd was driven down to the river to drink, we followed it. While I talked to the herdsman, Running Deer chose one of the best of the herd. She led it into a willow grove and disappeared. The horse was not missed until nightfall. By then, Running Deer was far out on the trail that would lead her home. That's the end of chapter 4.